Hello, my name is Goran Sergej Pristaš. I'm working with a collective Bedco in Zagreb. It seems that by chance I'm speaking now for the third time in 3 weeks about the same set of problems and troubles, just differently focused in terms of what is the topic of the conference, but 2 weeks ago in London, last week in Frankfurt, the same frame of themes is coming together, and this is a question which is related to the status of artistic labor in relation to the modes of communication, presentation, production, etc. And I would say that Artist in Residence program since 90s played a great deal of, on one side, supporting the artist to manage to find time to work, but then on the other side also probably unconsciously took part in a very dirty game of presencing artistic labor and replacing a huge amount of investment into a production through the logic of presencing artist work. And I will argument it briefly as much as I can do it in 10 minutes because I think it's a very complex issue and that we cannot observe it only through the perspective of specific field of practice, which we would call here artistic residency, but through the total changes in a society and the status of artistic labor in the institutional context today. So when I met in 90s Claude Veron, whom I met today again, and it was, as much as I remember, 92 or 93 or something like that at the ITM meeting. He was then in Pépinière de Jeunes Artistes, excuse my pronunciation. I'm really far from understanding and pronouncing French. I remember we had a very nice discussion, almost a kind of fight at that moment. It's very interesting what happened with the discourse on artistic residence from 90s till today. So in the 90s, the main issue was economic impact. At that time, ITM invested a lot into a research on the economic impact of art institutions and art in general in a society. And I remember a huge analysis which was produced by Flemish Theatre Institute, where they really calculated how much money each lady pays for the haircut, for a new dress, for new shoes, for a taxi drive, how much money is spent on printing the papers for the tickets and programs, etc. And in the end, the argumentation was about the economic impact of culture and arts in general and how much it can bring into a society. And I think that in very interesting terms, it coincides with the turn in the system of co-production at that time, because in the 80s and still in the 90s, you remember that there was this turn from the institutions with the ensembles in the theater to so-called co-production institutions, small institutions with a mobile economy and exchanging artists and first of all dealing with production of the artistic work and distribution of the artistic work. So 80s and 90s were times when people who were running the institutions were talking about their artists. Today we are working mostly with the institutions and curators, not anymore programmers, producers or artistic directors, who are talking about their audience and their context. And I think it's a big, big shift, not only in terms of economy, but also in terms of mentality. And I don't want to blame any curators for that. I think it's just a symptom of what happens in the last 20 years. So first of all, when we talk about the shift that most of the discourse about the cultural institutions today changed from economical impact towards social and political impact, I would say it's due to the fact that the main model of valorization is abandoning completely aesthetical outcome of the artistic production. That aesthetical valorization completely disappeared from any kind of communication between the institution and funding structures, and the main model of valorization is transparency of managing of the institution's projects, etc., and the valorization through the numbers of people who attend the thing. And the third thing which crucially comes in is the way how the artist by his or her presencing in a society, produces a wider social impact, which means basically that art lost completely its own argumentation as a kind of generic practice in a society. So we can confirm the value of art mostly through the logic of its impact in a society, in economy, in communicational terms, etc., etc. So what I would like to say here is somehow that this turn is also related to the dominant mode of funding the arts today, and this is a project logic. Project logic is, and all of you are one way or another involved into a project. Project logic is valorized mostly by the fact how it was managed. So there is always a deadline, this kind of deadly line, when you have to finish the project. And at the deadline, what do you report basically? You report money. You do not report any what really doesn't matter is what you produced out of that. It really matters what kind of impact it had in terms of social field, how many people came to visit it, and blah. But what happens also with the deadline is that artists mostly never finish the work within the deadline, because they have to also prepare another application at the same time. They have to write down, and they have to manage their projects more and more. Because with this whole curatorial turn, I would call it now, but I would say also it's a social turn within the arts institutions. What happened was that production is disappearing from the sphere of communication, and presencing of the artist as somebody who is dwelling for a while in our institutions, who is doing workshops, who is working with local people, who is doing lecture performances, ad hoc projects, collaborative projects, let's work together, and even let's organize our institution for a while in the different terms, produced a situation in which production is withdrawn somewhere where we do not know really where, and more people who are presenting artworks, and I'm talking now mostly about performing arts institutions that I belong to, do not even know where the artwork was produced. I was stunned recently at a conference listening to 3 really major European performing arts curators when I asked, do you know where these projects were produced and in what conditions? There was no answer. Something's going on there and I don't know what. So what I would like to say is that when we talk about the situation within the artist in residence programs, what didn't change from the 80s till today is basically a situation of scarcity. More or less, in most of the artist in residence programs, we are still in a situation that artistic residence covers the costs of life of the artist at the time of being there. But the expectations are much bigger than in the 80s. In the 80s, it was more or less, okay, you come, you have a closed space, you work, you are out of the production structure, production urges, but today you also have to communicate with local people, you have to do, and I think it's a very problematic situation if we do not really valorize it. Because it's a game that is not played by our institutions, it's a wider social game that is played on there. Because the state is very much ready, and I would say now neoliberal state quite concretely. Neoliberal state is very much ready to invest into a cultural institution to do a social work instead of other social subjects which were doing these things, not just because artists are very good in making people feel good or finding ways how to spend their free time for the sake of other people's free time being better. But artists are also very good in presenting that they are doing it and representing a situation of a state and social institutions who are taking care of poor people, homeless, etc., etc. So besides, so it's a double outcome for the state, you know. Once you invest into a cultural institution to take care for the social problems, or to, instead of imagining new worlds as the romantic idea of the artist was, we have even worse one, which is correcting the world or the time, or repairing a bit the world. you are all the time in a situation that we argument not only for this kind of work that is done by the artist, but also we name it as relational aesthetics, as community art, etc. And now just go to UK and look at the funding system. What gets the most money in UK today is basically community art. And if you want to get money really there as an artist, the work that you have to do is a community artwork. I'm a bit blunt, but I think that we live in a time when this kind of what Brecht calls plumpes denken or non-elegant thinking is probably very much important. So I would just give at the end an example of the project that we took part in, and that was artist in residence project done by small theater Skogen in Göteborg in Sweden. It's a house, small theater house run by two artists. One is theater director and another is stage designer. So they contacted us 2 years in advance, and they proposed to us that they have a space and that they are curating blocks and not a program. And that they invite other people to get residence there from 1 week till 3 months and make a part of the program there. But their care is to find funding for the whole thing and create conditions that you are regularly paid, that you have production budget if you are producing something, that you have communication, and they also take care for the local communication and making things visible. And being a performing arts collective, and you know how difficult it is to work in artist in residence with collectives, because it always takes much more money to host people, etc. This was a really immense experience, because when we've been there, we had a chance to present a huge line of our work. So we were funded enough to show 7 different shows, to do 3 workshops, to organize lectures by other people we invited, and also 2 performances by other people from Sweden that we were interested in. And amount of the audience was growing, not because we did some local thing with the people, but because they had a chance to see a continuity of the work. And in a situation when you are working in mostly a network of presentation organizers, because mostly theaters that we work today now are kind of like one group of theaters that present whatever it means when it's called hermetic conceptual performance, etc. So you are always at the same places. If here we had a chance really to almost work as a repertory, not a repertory company, not as somebody who comes once, shows one show, and then you are never there, you know, like before another curator comes, because proliferation of names has to be huge. The communication we had about the artwork there was really completely different from any other experience we had at the festivals. Audience was growing all the time. The texts were written. It really accumulated something. And what they do is also that they are archiving the whole thing. So when you come as an artist in a year, you can see what other artists did. You can use it. You can somehow rework the things which were there, etc. So that's just a minor example of something that I would say that within the field of performing arts is very much different than what we are working with in general. Because in a way, I think that I would agree with Mladen Stilinovic, Croatian artist, who says that art always has consequences. So we don't have to confirm the consequences of arts through another argumentation that doesn't belong. I mean, we are in situation and we are obliged to do that anyway. But what we have to find is another mode of valorization to argument for what we are working on and to argument what we are supporting through these programs. Otherwise, we will come in a situation where I was last year in a beautiful artist in residence project where I was writing a book, but I was there for a month alone in a village with a donkey, and I felt in a kind of mirror-like situation. observing donkey who eats every day something, who has her own rhythm, who has her own living cycles, I just felt that I was much more busy than donkey at that residence. So thank you very much.